Happy Wednesday to the XRP family. Thank you so much for all the love. As you can see across the board, we are starting off Wednesday on a really positive note. I'm going to talk to you guys about that. That is the main reason I kind of wanted to sit with you guys and, go over some of the news factor, talk about the price, because Bitcoin has been able to do something we talked about last night. XRP is up about 3%. A lot of altcoins up right now. Again, pretty much since Saturday, as I have discussed with you guys in the previous updates, we've seen the market in this upwards trajectory. But as far as XRP price is concerned right now, it's sitting at $2.22, up about 3% on the USD side of things. We're seeing a little bit of a lag on the Bitcoin side of things because, again, dominance has picked up a little bit. Valuation 134.5 billion and the 24-hour trading volume at $4 billion. But before we get into any further, as always, just a quick disclaimer, anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So take a look at this. Over the past 1 hour, $101 million in positions were liquidated, with shorts taking about $98.9 million and longs only at about $2 million. So, we've seen quite a big liquidation in just the past 1 hour, about $100 million. And that is due to, this Bitcoin breakout, which I'm going to obviously talk to you guys about in this update. Take a look at this. S&P 500 has also gone above $6,800 and is now less than 2% away from hitting an all-time high. Asset owners are winning. You could see for yourself, S&P 500 is breaking out, and we're about to see a new all-time high. And when you compare it to Bitcoin, Bitcoin is far off from, where, Bitcoin was towards an all-time high. But could this really be the turnaround? As you guys know, if you've been watching the channel, you guys know my overall analysis. You guys know my overall take on the price of Bitcoin. And speaking about Bitcoin, we retested the target we were talking to you guys about last night, which I'm going to obviously touch on. But, we actually got close to it, but you could really see, that the bullish momentum that I was talking to you guys about, Bitcoin holding, it really ended up showing as we started off new day. But speaking about S&P 500, JP Morgan said the S&P 500 could reach $8,000 in 2026. That is, a big statement to be making, but it kind of goes back to quantitative easing. If you've watched my older updates, I talked to you guys about how quantitative easing is to begin next month, which we're actually approaching the last month of the year of 2025. And historically speaking, when quantitative easing have happened in the previous cycles, you have seen market actually, pushing towards the upside. I know, historically speaking, the bull market should be coming to an end around this time, but due to the institutional demand that's coming in, due to, major liquidity that could potentially come in, that's where, a lot of analysts are saying, this time around could be different. 4-year cycle no longer exists. Obviously, due to quantitative easing, more liquidity could come into riskier assets such as stocks, such as crypto. We'll see what happens, but again, that overall thesis makes sense. But in terms of confidence, I've been talking to you guys about this. I make updates every single day on the channel. Every time around the end of the bull market, everyone comes on board and starts talking about if this cycle is different or not. But indeed, this time around, the big difference is ETFs, are here now. Institutional demand is here. Legislation, for crypto products, obviously in works. You're seeing so much happening that we did not see in the previous cycle. And, Bitcoin has seen a sharp pullback. But if you look at Bitcoin from 2022 lows, Bitcoin is in this upwards trajectory. So is the 4-year cycle indeed no longer valid? We'll see. And again, I've been talking to you guys about the year of 2026. We'll see what happens. But, due to the quantitative easing, that's where, once I dug into the quantitative easing and kind of looked into that metric, it's kind of, starting to all, these things are starting to all align. And especially how we did see this major pullback for the markets already, during times where historically speaking in a bull market, it's such a bullish time. It just makes me think 2026 might actually end up being a big year after all. But we'll still see what happens in terms of altcoins. Altcoins really did not have their altcoin season that a lot of people are expecting, but maybe that switches up with more liquidity coming into the space. Maybe we do see something that we have seen late last year. That was the closest to an altcoin season in my opinion. But also what a lot of people forget is Crypto is saturated, meaning there's a lot of altcoins now. There's millions of coins out there. So, you got to pick the right ones. Diversification is your number one key to follow. But XRP is one of the coins that actually has had a positive price action, with the broader market. And with this correlation that we see, with the ETF flows that we're seeing, a major amounts of demand that we can sense, that makes me, optimistic that, with Bitcoin increasing and XRP already sitting at $2.23. Bitcoin is sitting below $100,000. What happens with XRP once Bitcoin reclaims back towards all-time highs? I'm projecting XRP to break towards all-time highs to newer levels that we have not seen ever in the price history of XRP. But let's take a look at this. Franklin, XRPZ, and Bitwise again, out for the top spot an hour and a half in. And, obviously the market is still open. This is still quite fresh. We'll see what happens to see how much volume we are going to be seeing at the end of obviously the day. Obviously, this is a long weekend. I might see lower volumes, but again, last night update, I indicated to you guys about how ETF inflows have already, the cumulative ETF inflows in just the last 2 days have outpaced what we saw in the entire week of last week. So again, a plus point to keep in mind. But take a look at this. How is the UK approaching crypto regulation to become a global leader? In 1 minute, Matt, policy director for the UK and Europe at Ripple, explains the plan: adopt proportionate growth friendly rules and allow overseas stablecoins such as RLUSD to be used locally. I would suggest you guys to watch this and read into it if you are interested, and that really gives you a better understanding as to how much innovation Ripple has been making. But take a look at this. Speaking about ETFs, another kid on the block, the 21 shares XRP spot ETF, ticker TOXR, has received official approval and is set to begin trading on November 29th. This marks another milestone in expanding institutional access to XRP. And on top of that, 2025 reports reveals institutional investors are quietly accumulating ISO 222 compliant tokens. These tokens, XRP, Cardano, Algorand, are noted to be less resource heavy in terms of energy use and carbon footprint, and they can be integrated into the central bank payment system, thus supporting efficient cross-border payment and supporting financial innovation and transformation of the traditional financial landscape. Moreover, with some cryptocurrencies having close links with ISO 222, they are likely to influence the global financial systems and receive greater regulatory support in the future. And this, of course, has been documented. Moving forward, take a look at this. Kathy Wood just doubled down on her mega bullish case. Kathy Wood, isn't backing off of her target on Bitcoin, which again, she's thinking at about a $1.5 million per Bitcoin by 2030. Her reasoning is straightforward. We're in a temporary risk off stretch. Bitcoin is only halfway through its 4-year cycle. ARK still sees this as an active bull market. US deregulation is unlocking institutional demand. Adding Bitcoin improves a portfolio's risk adjusted return. To her, nothing about the long term thesis has changed, only sentiment has. And I could not agree more about the overall long term projection about Bitcoin. People used to talk about back when Bitcoin went from, $16,000 down to, $3,000 in 2020, and then so on and so forth. People never thought Bitcoin could ever reach a six-figure price point, and here we are. And look at it from a long-term perspective. All this demand coming in terms of the amount of Bitcoin that are being mined, the demand is already outweighing that. I would say much more than how much are actually coming into circulation, and they're being bought back up quick. And long-term accumulators are holding. If you're looking at the long-term accumulation pattern, so these are factors we want to consider. But let's take a look at what is happening. So as far as the dominance is concerned, we've seen a little bit of an uptick, but dominance did come down to 58.47% as discussed last night. But this little bit of an uptick is the reason why you're seeing a little bit of a lag on the Bitcoin side of things. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has done it. Here we have it. So again, Bitcoin broke out, not exactly to the, 0.50 fib zone, but remember, I was talking to you guys about how we are looking bullish above this key support line. We've seen a couple, retest close to it, but we never really managed to see the price drop below it here. And today, you could see for yourself, we saw Bitcoin going up about 5%. And, obviously, we do have some resistance around the 90K key range. If you watch some of my other market analysis updates, you guys know what I'm talking about. $90,000. I'm not surprised that was rejected. But again, if the daily candle close is about to happen above, this $89,000 price point, I do personally believe, this 0.50 target could be retested much quicker than a lot of people are realizing. Obviously, long weekend, that's something we want to kind of keep in mind. I do expect some volatility, but if you're looking at XRP, we were sitting at $2.15 yesterday, holding up really nicely compared to, November 21st low. Since then, the price is up about 23%, as you can see for yourself. But see this for yourself. Just since yesterday, XRP's price has gone up 5.24% in USD comparative. Again, very, very impressive. But you can notice that it's kind of similar to, Bitcoin's move right now. The reason why we're not outpacing BTC right now is due to the dominance picking up as well. But nonetheless, looking great. Obviously, we got stopped out at the $2.25 range. There is significant amount of resistance around here, to be honest. But again, if we're able to close, better than where we were yesterday, that would be a good sign. And the 38.2 still is in target for me. So I want to kind of talk about the price action here with you guys to give you guys a little bit of a better understanding. So in terms of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is, if you want to put this into perspective, from its all-time high, we're still about 40% away towards an all-time high. So let's say Bitcoin goes up 40%. Usually altcoins tend to, do double, but let's kind of be realistic and say XRP, were to go up 60%. Let's just give or take, okay? So 60% from here puts it at, literally, look at it for yourself, at the all-time high as well. And that's considering, though, keep this in mind. Keep this factor in mind. The dominance sitting at 58.83%. If the dominance continues to pull down or even stay stagnant, I think XRP could actually break out and hit new all-time highs, this time around, if Bitcoin is able to turn things around. And you guys know my overall thesis on Bitcoin. Pretty much since my targets have been met, I think, this overall correction, in terms of the cycle itself, is done. I think I'm more confident for things to turn around. But again, going back to what I said, don't expect, no retracements, no volatility. But right now, the 0.50 is still where my eyes are on. And as of now, the price of Bitcoin is showing strength right now. Obviously, in terms of a confirmation, $100,000 as of now for us to kind of, break out of this key trajectory. For me personally, of course, but nonetheless, a nice move for Bitcoin. If you want to put this into perspective, from November 21st, we've seen an increase of about 12%. So again, got to take it step by step. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Thank you so much for all the love. We'll see you later in Crypto ZX, and peace out.